The unrest started at the beginning of the academic year when it emerged that in an attempt to restore the country's financial balance, Silvio Berlusconi's conservative government was going to cut 1.5 billion euros from the higher education budget over the next 5 years and oblige universities to raise more of their finances from sources other than the state.
I want a public university. I don't want cuts, and I want to be able to do research.
In response to the global financial crisis, the government decreed the budgets of both universities and research could be used as funds to shore up Italy's banks and credit institutes. We won't pay for your crisis, chant the students, who say they won't allow the government to drop the burden of the financial crisis on their shoulders and on the educational system. At barely 1.1% of its gross domestic product, Italy's research and development budget is less than half that of comparable countries, such as France and Germany. The irony of the current situation is that everyone agrees that the Italian higher education system needs a drastic overhaul. But critics say cuts aren't the solution. Italy needs to spend more on higher education, they say, and make better use of these funds.
If resources are taken away from the schooling system and the university system in a kind of uniform way, those that are going to suffer most are the few areas where life is still active. Think of the Italian university system, if we want to be specific, as a big swamp where most of the oxygen is gone, life is gone, but there are a few pockets where, life persists because there is still some oxygen. If you take oxygen away from those pockets, life will disappear from the swamp. What should be done is to pump oxygen where there is life and hope that starting from there, life will go back to the whole swamp.
For the most part, Italian universities are overstaffed, overcrowded, and underfunded. Similarly to the rest of Italian society, jobs are awarded on the basis of political patronage, and the tenured professors, known as the baroni, the barons, treat their faculties as personal fiefs.
The system of recruitment doesn't really favor the best and the brightest. There are too many people who just, get appointed to a post because they are related to some powerful professor, or just because they are the followers of that professor. But you have to reform the way people are recruited, and I must say, a law is not enough. You must set an example, you must set standards, you must set a best practice, and this is really lacking in too many Italian universities.
An additional problem is low pay. Even 10 years into their career, some Italian researchers have to get by on just 1,000 euros a month.
Italy is an inclusive culture, and so there are thousands of people in the university system who are making crumbs, but they're part of the system, and they get by each year on their little bit of crumbs, hoping that they'll finally get a permanent job and finally, have a decent salary for the last 10 years of their lives. And I think, again, getting back to a meritocracy where you're going to cut out a lot of these people. They shouldn't be in there anyway, because a lot of these people, it's not that they're particularly brilliant scholars. They're just in there because people want to, hand out as many pieces of the pie as they can.
Some valuable research and inspirational teaching are done in Italian universities, but the more common pattern is of a uniform mediocrity. It's easy to understand why most of Italy's most promising students and researchers have fled abroad, creating a scientific brain drain.
So the main problem in Italy is the lack of funds and the way the money are distributed in Italy. Because they are distributed not on the basis of the merit, but mostly on the basis of the connection you have with politicians.
You need to prune out and to weed out a number of professors which are clearly incompetent. But this is a painful process which very few governments would have the courage to do. But this is indispensable. Otherwise, they will suffocate any initiative, you know, by people who want to do real things, to be creative, to invent new things.
The first thing I would change is the system to recruit professors at university. The system should be based on the merit, on the value of the person, that you can judge, you can evaluate a person on the basis of their scientific production, on their curriculum, on the papers produced and published.
During the past 2 months, students have occupied universities without stopping teaching activities. Researchers have organized special classes, like this one on copyright and patent law. Professors have brought their classes into city squares, open to the public like the institutions they want to defend. Open-air lectures like this architecture class, held alongside Rome's Arapacis, have taken place in other cities like Milan, Bologna, and Naples. Students have organized open days on campus, attended by parents and young children. These were occasions to inform the grown-ups about the reasons behind their protests and entertain the kids with demonstrations of scientific principles.
I want a future for my child. It's very simple. Without culture, there is no future. Without serious knowledge, there is no future.
The government has treated higher education and research as just another expense to be cut, when in fact, it should be considered an investment in building a 21st century knowledge economy. Unless the government and a majority of Italians realize it's necessary to set up a recruitment system for university and research jobs based on merit, and rapidly extend this system to the rest of the labor market, the brain drain will continue, and Italy's economic system won't be able to compete with those of other nations that have invested far more resources in research and development. Wolf Achtner, Press TV, Rome.